Welcome to Aiken This Week. I'm Emery Langston. Today we're being joined by members of the Environmental and Energy Committee for the City of Aiken that we're so happy to have with us, Miss Marianne Archibald and Mr. Ron Delamora, who will be talking about some of the wonderful things that the committee has going on all the time and throughout the year. And so we're going to jump right in, and to get started, I'd like for both of you to tell us a little bit about yourselves and kind of how you came to be on the committee. So Marianne, we'll start with you.
Okay, my husband and I are from Detroit, Michigan, and we moved to Aiken when we got tired of snow. Said this would be a better idea. We moved here in 2001, and after we were here for a few years and got settled and enjoying being in Aiken, we were looking for a way to give back to the community, and this opportunity came up on the Energy and Environmental Committee, and it has just been a blast. It's been very, very fun, and I'm glad that I'm a part of such a terrific group.
I know that you have had a true heart being on this committee and a lot of energy, which I think is very appropriate, in doing what you do. Just a whirlwind of energy to be on the committee. So,
Thank you.
Ron, what about you?
Well, thank you again for the invitation. We've been here for about 11 years. Barbara and I relocated from Chicago, and it's a decision that we have never second guessed. It's just been a real delight to be here. And I was thinking the other day, in relationship to the committee, I interviewed a Swiss national who had just recently moved into Aiken, and he was having some struggles getting aligned and so forth, et cetera. And in the course of the conversation, he said, "I'm retired but not tired." And I had never heard that expression before. And I too am not tired, and I'm involved, in addition to the Energy and Environmental Committee. I serve as a volunteer at ACTS. I'm a mentor counselor with the SCORE organization, and I'm on the board of directors at Woodside Plantation Country Club. And similar to what Marianne just said a second ago, each of these activities gives me an opportunity in some small way to contribute back to the community. How I got engaged in the committee maybe 6 years ago, I was recruited by, at the time, Councilman Dick Smith. And he said, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Interested in what?" And he kind of described some things. And the long and the short of it is he said, "We have an opening in Parks and Rec and in what was called then the Environmental Committee." And I said, "Well, tell me about both of them." And then I said, "Well, what is the better need?" And he says, "Ron, you're a jock, why don't you do Parks and Rec?" And I said, I think you define the need as environmental as being a bigger need. And I said, so I'll sign up for the Environmental Committee. So that's how I got on the committee.
Well, and I think you have a background, too, that lends itself very well to the Energy Environmental Committee from your before retirement life. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, I worked for an aluminum company, and we were in the recycling business, reprocessing aluminum products into an end product.
Well, we're very glad to have two retired but not tired folks to be involved with this committee, because it is very important. And when we look at energy and conservation issues and these types of concerns as a city, we're looking at them more and more. And Ron, can you tell us what the role of the committee really is?
Well, I'll go through it a couple ways. One, you may be familiar with this booklet that's put out by the city each year. And basically it defines the role of boards and commissions and committees and so forth. What's a chair supposed to do? What's the obligation of staff? That kind of thing. And what it basically says about committees is that any committee is supposed to be supportive of city policies. If we are assigned a task by council, we're supposed to look at that aggressively and positively and objectively and make a recommendation. And then finally, committees are to serve as a conduit, that is, to represent citizens' views to council. So that's what it says in the booklet, and those are all laudable objectives and needs, and we certainly support them. In the case of our committee, we've taken it a step further. What I just described a second ago to us is largely reactive and passive, And what our goal is to be proactive and find needs and opportunities and take initiatives and action steps, present them to the council, and try to help the city move forward with that particular activity. So it's, it's what the book says, plus.
So the book is kind of a guideline that gives all committees
Right.
a good path forward and where to start. But the idea of being proactive and innovative, I think, fits perfectly with your personalities and on this committee.
I would think.
So let's talk about the function of the liaison to the city, and can you talk about that working relationship?
Okay, I will do that, and I think maybe a good starting point is to talk about our mission statement, which really is a function of the role question you asked a second ago, and it's a bit wordy, so I'll read this if you don't mind.
Sure.
But in keeping with Aiken's Tomorrow Green City theme, the committee will encourage and foster energy conservation, responsible energy use, and renewable energy initiatives. We will promote environmental stewardship by raising awareness of environmentally friendly practices and assure environmental sustainability in a financially responsible manner. So you can read this at your leisure, on the city website, but that's kind of the overriding mission or role of the group. The question was, how do we function? And our reporting relationship, of course, is to City Council, since each of us is appointed by a council member or the city mayor. But our working relationship or functional relationship in our case is with Public Services. And Public Services essentially is responsible for collecting garbage, recycling, picking up yard waste, that sort of thing. And it's a natural bridge to an environmental committee, which is green and recycling and litter and these kind of things. So the tie-in is, I think, obvious and immediate. The people we work with are Sarah Herring, who's the supervisor, and then her direct supervisor, Tim Coakley. And they're regularly involved in the committee. The working relationship we have is one based on mutual trust, mutual confidence, mutual support. It's kind of a two-way street. Those people might occasionally come to us and say, gee whiz, the city wants to, for example, have a collection program for needles, discarded needles, and or for how do we dispose of pill bottles. And so they'll present that to us, we'll talk about it, and presuming that we're in concurrence with that particular initiative, we'll vote as a committee to say, yes, that makes sense, and quote unquote endorse it. The flip side is that as a group of creative people, we are always having ideas about this, that, these, or those. And so when we discuss them among the committee, staff, Sarah and or Tim, interact with us, and if we need a metric that they can provide, they do that. If we are, let's say, deviating from a policy that we might not be aware of, they'll bring our attention back that way. But it's an exchange of ideas, and the relationship is, as I said, they are essentially staff to the committee, okay, and so we rely on their advice and the exchange, but the decision remains within the committee about moving forward. So,
Sure, what a great format to have, and I know that they're a great group of folks over there.
well, I should say two things about that, actually. What we try to do is be respectful of their time. They are employees, they have a job to do, and what might be a high energy thing for us as a committee, for them, is second place to their responsibilities. So we have to be sensitive to their time needs and priorities and interact on that basis.
Sure. Well, Marion, I understand that there are 7 members of the committee. Can you kind of talk about those members and how they are appointed?
We are each appointed by a member of council and the mayor, although I guess he's a member of council also, for a 2-year term. And they're staggered, so we don't have a whole brand new committee every couple of years. We just had one of our committee members was just reappointed this past Monday night for the next 2 years. And
So your terms are 2 years?
terms are 2 years, that's exactly right.
2 years, 2-year commitment.
And there are 7 of us on the committee. Sometimes all city committees are not completely full. Council struggles with keeping that every committee at a full membership. But we're really lucky. We have wonderful people on our committee, and they've been around, most of them, for several years, and they're doing a good job and not interested in leaving and happy to be reappointed. So
y'all have
It's a good group.
an infectious group of folks that y'all feed off each other. And Ron, can you talk about the members who are on the committee?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'll talk about Mary Ann. She won't talk about herself, so I'll say it. But Mary Ann serves as our secretary and our historian. You've implied a couple times that our interaction as a committee is pretty active and intense, interesting, certainly. And Mary Ann is the person who keeps these moving pieces glued together. And she didn't say it earlier, but her background is as a school teacher, and occasionally she'll resort to some of those techniques of getting out the ruler and wrapping our knuckles when we're getting out of hand. So she is invaluable to the committee, and I would say invaluable to the city, to the city as
Indeed.
a citizen. Our next, I'll do these alphabetically, is Norm Dunnigan. He is, you're familiar with that name, the owner of Dumpster Depot. He's a contractual supplier to the city for recycling. Within our committee, he does two things. We have recycled initiatives and interests different from what he does, and he can bring some insight to us about how to do it, and he's a marketing wizard. So as we try to brand ourselves as a committee, or more importantly, like for Earth Day, his marketing insight is very useful to us as to things that we might consider. Dave Fouth is retired from the Savannah River site, PhD in chemical engineering. He has a lot of contacts at the site which help us out in many ways with speakers and Earth Day and things like that. His current focus is on solar. He's attended a seminar here a couple weeks ago, and is engaging people to be in our next Earth Day. So he is our solar expert, and that's something of strategic value to the city. Andy Hallen is, he and his wife Tracy are new to the area, maybe 2 years, relocated from Panama. He was with Procter & Gamble for 25 years, supply chain management. When they were in Panama, both of them belonged to a nonprofit organization that was stressing environmental awareness. And Andy's particular passion is he would like to see Aiken go to a zero waste management system. Who's next in order here? Oh, Newbern, Bob Newbern. Can't ever forget Bob. Okay, Mr. Clean Green Aiken. Since I've known him for 4 or 5 years, this is a man who's got a passion, okay, about litter, the problems that it's created for the city, the cost it's created to the city. Certainly believes and sees that if we're able to address this litter problem, it has economic benefits, both from a cost standpoint and attracting industry standpoint. So he's our champion for that. And then our final guy on the committee is Frank Wright. And he has an undefined role. And to me, it's really interesting that as we have all this dynamic interaction within the committee, all of a sudden, it's like the Star Wars movie. I can't remember the character's name, but the wise guy. You know, Frank, kind of comes up very calmly and has, gee whiz, let's bring some focus to this. You know, empathetic,
Right.
sympathetic, you know, balance. And so he's kind of like a calming influence when we're all, you know, interacting.
Bouncing
You know, so
ideas.
It's a wonderful group of people.
Absolutely. And it's important to have those balances, the school teacher, the calm, wise guy, with all your personalities. Well, and I think we've kind of touched on this, Ron, but as a committee, I know that you hear and you get feedback from a number of folks, and you work very closely with public services as far as your direction. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I know with the ideas that your committee has, and then the ideas that public services brings forth to your committee, can you talk about the direction and who you receive that from?
Well, our direction, again, is from council. And specifically, I can give you a couple examples. Leslie Price, on 3 occasions that come to mind immediately, she's engaged in environmental groups, both statewide and federally. And so she'll become aware of initiatives and or specifically grants, and she'll say, gee whiz, does the committee know about this? And Frank Wright, the guy I just referred to a second ago, you know, he's our guy who pursues grants and, you know, tries to see if there's any particular benefit. maybe like 3 months ago or so, in a conversation with Councilman Dewar, he had an interest in styrofoam, and this is a non-economic item to collect, but it's not a good product to have.
Right.
And he was saying, can you focus some attention on trying to displace styrofoam with something more, a better value and less negative impact on the, on the environment. So those would be a couple things.
Sure, sure. Mary Ann, working with the committee, there's so many issues that could be tackled. Every year, looking at even a long-range plan. So how and why do y'all focus in on some annual objectives?
Well, early in the fall each year, we have one meeting where we sit down and talk about how the year has gone and what we'd like to do in the next year, and kind of do a brainstorming where we just write down anything that anybody has in their mind, what they've heard from council members or talking to other citizens, and ideas of things that we might look at. Then we come back the next meeting and look at that list again and narrow it down to more manageable. Number of things that we can do. There's only so much you can handle, in 1 year. So we have to prioritize and make it to a number that we can handle. And then we work pretty well on the wording of them too. We want to be real specific and know exactly what we're doing. Sometimes the umbrella is too wide and then you don't accomplish anything because you've got too much that you're working on. So it's a nice process, and probably we've done that for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's worked really well for us.
Well, very necessary
And
step
it's good to
take.
have goals and
Yes.
know where you're going instead of just coming to a meeting and say, well, gee, now what should we do?
Absolutely. Y'all are a very organized bunch. So can you talk about some of the current objectives?
I can. For 2016, we have 6 objectives that we've narrowed it down to. The first one is to expand our Earth Day event. We had the first one last year, and we were fortunate. We had 40 exhibitors come for the very first time to have such an event. We thought that was wonderful, and they were all terrific. We had 150 people run in our People Chase Marathon, and so we're hoping to increase those 2 numbers this year. Ron has set a goal of 50 exhibitors, so our committee members are out there looking for people who have interesting things to educate the citizens of Aiken about the earth and the environment and our resources and all of those kind of things. So we're hoping to expand that. That's one of our goals for this year. Also, we'd like to increase and improve litter reduction efforts. The county has developed a litter task force, and so we're working hand in hand with them and trying to work on this litter. The idea that South Carolina is the dirtiest state in the nation is something that we don't want to be part of, and we'd like to help improve that throughout the whole state, but especially in Aiken
Sure.
and Aiken County. We're also working on expanding opportunities for citizens to improve the energy efficiency in their own home. It was like Ron said, Leslie Price had come to us with some ideas of grant opportunities. And so we're going to be out looking for those ourselves and hopefully provide the information to our citizens so that they can avail themselves of these kind of grants and opportunities. We want to increase the recycling program. If you talk to Sarah Herring for about 5.5 minutes, she'll talk to you about how wonderful recycling is and how necessary, and we can do better with recycling. So we're trying to work on that this year and see if we can come up with ways to just increase the number of the citizens of Aiken who are taking advantage of the wonderful free
Yes.
curbside recycling program that we have. Years ago, you used to have to put all the bottles in one place and the newspapers in another place, and now you just throw them all in one big box, and some nice, wonderful city workers come around and pick it up for you. It's just great.
It is.
So we'd like to have some more citizens involved in that. We also want to improve communications to the citizens about the reuse, recycle, reduce concept, and mostly our communication of the kinds of things that we're doing and the efforts that Sarah and her staff are putting out. We want to make sure that all of our citizens know about that. So we're going to be looking next year for better ways to communicate those concepts to our citizens. And last of all, we're going to be looking for possible cost structure changes. A lot of our citizens are concerned with the recent increase in taxes that they're running into when they go out for the evening and those kind of things. So maybe there's some way we can work in the garbage collection and recycling area to reduce those costs for our citizens. So that seemed like a natural thing for our committee to look into in 2016.
Sure. Y'all have some really important and very solid objectives to look at, and I'm looking forward to the Earth Day event.
Good.
And hearing that the People Chase will be coming back. And that was so well received and well supported by the local businesses here in the area. And I guess if any vendor is interested in reaching out and becoming a part of the event, they can just contact the committee or even public services to get in touch
Right.
with y'all.
Exactly.
So, Ron, let's talk about some of the successes that y'all have had from the committee. Can you
Sure.
talk about that?
The most visible success, of course, is what Mary Ann's been talking about here briefly on Earth Day. That has been very well received, and we already know the momentum for 2016 is well in place. And I'll take this opportunity to say mark your calendars for April 23rd from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. over here on Newberry Street Festival Center. We have a space for you, so be sure to attend that. It's a wonderful festive experience, but it's, as Mary Ann said, it's a learning experience and education, awareness, self-responsibility, that kind of thing is the theme. So some of the successes, I guess what I would say is the very first one goes back maybe about two and a half years ago, and we call it the Lighting Project. And Public Services office is on the north side on DuPont Avenue, and we were meeting there, and we're kind of looking at the place, and it kind of came up kind of casually, how come, what's wrong with the lights, where are they, blah, 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 stuff like this. And as we started talking about it, we said just maybe we ought to make DuPont a project. So we brought some consultants in to say, please look at DuPont, how can we make Humpty Dumpty better, kind of thing. And so for a mere $150,000, they shared with us that they could replace a couple light bulbs and do some things like that. So they made an effective enough presentation that we learned about electricity and cost savings and things like that, but the price was prohibitive. So then, we took it internal, we went to council at the Horizons meeting, and they came up with $20,000 that was authorized to Public Services to look at their systems. So it took about maybe like 18 months, and it was mostly sweat equity labor by the Public Services group, but we bought some stuff, meaning the Public Service in this case bought some stuff, used their manpower, and significantly upgraded the lighting systems at the Public Services building and improved safety outdoors, which was a key issue. So we use the word poster child. That lighting project, serves as a poster child, an opportunity to look at for a $20,000 expenditure and some man hours, just maybe some other city facility can upgrade itself as well. So, and that's been written up and submitted for review. The city has a lot of land that is underutilized, not utilized at all. And just in general conversation within the meeting, that topic came up, and we said, well, how can we use some? So our thought became, why don't we have a community garden of some sort? So Tim Coakley at the time identified where the plots might be and so forth. And the long story short is that the site of Governor Aiken Park is what we selected. So this is our idea in a committee, right, which has nothing to do with Governor Aiken Park. So we go meet with their board to say, gee whiz, does it make sense? Would you be interested in having a community garden here in your area? And so there was, I wouldn't call it tension, but there's some interaction about, well, who's going to pay for it? Who's going to do it? Who's going to maintain it? Are my vegetables going to get ripped off? A lot of questions like that. And we said, well, some of the questions we can answer, some other ones we can't. But we engaged with their board, with the city, Public Services, and we got some donations. We got some labor from USC Aiken, and came out, created a garden plot. The citizens, local to Governor Aiken Park, planted the seeds, argued over, hey, don't get in my territory here, this is mine, stuff like this. But there was a pride of ownership
Sure.
and involvement and citizen, and it was, I don't want to overstate it, but a rallying point, for that community because they had a place to go and interact and pick their vegetables. So, so that was good. And then we talked a little bit about litter, and Bob Newbern, again, I said, as a strong advocate of litter, but we have a collective interest in it. And so maybe, I'm going to say a year ago or so, we got this hotline, litter hotline, posted in a couple places, including in the water bill. When calls come in now to Public Services, we monitor how many calls do we get, what area did they come from, has Public Services followed up to go clean up the litter if that's what's called for in that particular thing. And now we have what will be, January will be the third consecutive article within the water bill, and we're just trying to pitch, remind, aware, responsibility pertaining to litter, that for people to read each month. Mary Ann mentioned before that we're interacting with the Aiken County Litter Task Force, and the observation was there's no sense for both of us to reinvent the wheel. So maybe you have a good idea, we have a good idea, collectively we have better ideas. So we're trying to work with them, and so part of this statement in the water bill will refer to both the county and the city, so some synergism there. So those are three that come to mind quickly
good.
about things that we're doing.
Very good. And your meetings are open to the public?
They are. We meet once a month generally with all our work trying to get the first Earth Day event organized.
Yes.
Last year. We had a couple months where we met more than once, but generally the third Monday of each month. And certainly anybody who'd like to come is certainly welcome.
Very good. We've talked to and alluded to numerous times during our conversation today about the committee members, the dynamic, the passion, and how y'all are structured. But Ron, what makes this committee successful?
Well, I think personally there are two things that make it work, and in a word, it's the people themselves. I don't want to repeat what we've said already, but this is a dynamic group, a creative group, high energy, lots of ideas, results oriented. This is a high profile group that interacts well, and there are no wallflowers, and we debate things vigorously, but professionally and respectfully. And reach a conclusion. As a group, if I picked one word to describe them, is they all care. They care about what is happening in the city and what kind of contribution we collectively can make. And that's a dynamic that's priceless, from my perspective. And I think the other thing, and Mary Ann talked about it, she mentioned these objectives. I think committees are always at risk about doing a lot of conversation and leaving and meeting the next time. And we've established objectives in part so that we have focus, but a lot of these are quantified. They have metrics towards them. And when we chat about them, we don't say we want to improve litter. We'll say we specifically want to, for example, a goal is recycling rate of 50%. It's currently 26%. So, as we move to 30%, I guess we'd say, well, we didn't hit our goal of 50, but we sure aren't at 26 anymore, So we measure our progress, and we have focal points to come back to. So having objectives and having a team prepared to work towards those objectives is what makes us, we use the word successful, but I'd like to use the word meaningful. And, and that's how we look at it.
I think that is so accurate. Having the passion, which both of you obviously have, and the care, which you said for the topics that y'all are tackling, the materials that y'all are working with. It's an invaluable trait to have on your committee, and we're so excited about the upcoming events that we have to look forward to and the initiatives that we'll carry forward. And we just can't thank you enough for your volunteerism And we're the fortunate ones, the city citizens, to have folks who do care so much about the energy and environmental concerns that are facing our city. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about today that either one of you would like to share?
I can't think of anything.
I can't think of
I
it.
think y'all have both done a tremendous job of giving us an overview of what you do, and y'all do a lot. We thank you so much.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
We thank you too for joining us today for Aiken This Week, and we'll see you next time.